Did you play the Battlefield 6 open beta? I did. All I can say is, EA have actually done pretty well this time. Now, before I get into things, I want to be clear. I know this is beta. The whole point of this review isn't to judge the final product, but to share my experiences so far, what stood out, what frustrated me, and ultimately, what I hope gets carried into the final release, or maybe even improved in updates down the line. So take everything here with a pinch of salt. With that said, let's set the scene. Battlefield has always been about scale, chaos, and that feeling of being dropped into a living, breathing war zone. Massive maps, destructible environments, vehicles everywhere, squads coordinating. That's the core of the franchise, and it's what made so many of us fall in love with it. For years, the series has had its ups and downs. Some entries nailed the formula perfectly, like Battlefield 1 and 5, while others, like 2042, struggled to find their footing. There's always been tension between the fast-paced, accessible shooters and the slower, strategic, team-focused gameplay that fans truly cherish. Now, stepping into the new beta, I immediately felt the familiar scale and energy. Explosions, tanks, jets, and the infantry firefights all converging in ways that felt alive. And the first thing that really hit me, the gunplay. It's crispy, tight, and some of the most satisfying I've ever experienced in a shooter. Every shot has weight, the recoil feels earned, and aiming is buttery smooth, making firefights both challenging and rewarding. Although, at times I will admit, I could unload an entire clip into someone and get no hits. What's up with that? Aesthetically, it does carry a hint of Call of Duty. Gritty visuals, sharp lighting, cinematic effects, but the gameplay and tone, it's 100% Battlefield. For me, that's the most important part. This isn't just another shooter, it finally feels like a full-scale Battlefield, and it really brought me back to what the franchise does best. Now, a little context about where I'm coming from. I completely refused to touch Battlefield 2042 after its beta. Within minutes, it felt unfinished, overly complicated, and unpolished. Even when I logged in recently, it still looked like a grainy mess, though I have to acknowledge it's come a long way, and it's grown a niche fanbase who enjoy it. Personally, my favourite entries remain Battlefield 1 and 5. Those games nailed the pacing, immersion, and squad-focused warfare that the franchise is known for. That's what I always measure a Battlefield game against, and thankfully, this beta brings me closer to that feeling again. And yes, I do acknowledge Battlefield 5 started rough, but it's come a long way, and it's really enjoyable. Still got full servers, come and have a game sometime. Now, as you'll be aware, EA and DICE have reintroduced the class system, moving away from their specialist introduced in 2042. Although they say that, but I feel like it's kind of a have your cake and eat it too, which I'm still unsure about. In 2042, I couldn't get any momentum with any weapons, and it was such a drag the whole game. However, the Battlefield 6 beta, I picked up the familiar class system pretty quickly. Interestingly, I actually improved a lot when I broke from my usual protocol and played Engineer while using support main weapons. That combination offered both utility and firepower, and it made me realise how important the class flexibility in this game is. Even though the class system encourages certain roles, you can experiment and find a style that works for you, and it really changes the dynamic of a match. From what I've seen, critics are mostly impressed. They highlight the gunplay and performance stability, especially compared to the rocky 2042 launch. Many have even described it as a return to form for the franchise. Players, however, are more divided. Longtime Battlefield fans are happy it feels like a Battlefield again, while others feel it leans a little too much towards Call of Duty pacing. And honestly, I agree with that take. The game does feel faster than the traditional Battlefield, almost like it's conceding ground to Call of Duty rather than holding on to what made it unique. Battlefield was always the direct competitor because of its differences, not because it tried to mimic COD. That said, after a few hours, I got used to the pace. It's not the Battlefield rhythm I grew up with, but it's serviceable, even if it feels like EA is pandering a bit to the COD crowd. Right, let's talk about the things that need a little bit of work. Ammo supply problem. Currently, there are no ammo stations on the map, which makes you entirely reliant on your teammates. Too often I ran out of ammo mid-fight with no choice but to run into danger, get killed, and respawn just to restock. This breaks the flow of gameplay. Strategically placed ammo stations would allow players to fall back, rearm, and re-engage without depending on others who may not notice they need help. Next up, the tank durability. tanks felt way too fragile at times, and other times too strong. Most of the time I noticed it only took around 4 RPG shots to destroy one, and engineers spawn with 5. For a vehicle that's meant to be an armoured powerhouse, that's far too weak. Tanks should feel intimidating and require coordinated effort to take down. I did notice a difference between Beta 1 and 2, and honestly, sometimes a tank would be dominant and other times explode within seconds. I don't know what's going on. Squad play weakness. The squad play is better than Call of Duty, but it's not at the level of Battlefield 1 or 5. Most squads in the beta feel like a collection of random players rather than a coordinated team. Classic Battlefield squad mechanics, spotting, reviving, resupplying and tactical coordination just aren't consistently present. Although, I noticed an improvement from Beta 1 to 2, so that's something. Limited healing options. If you're not an assault class with an adrenaline, you basically have no way to heal yourself or teammates. I feel healing should be more accessible across the classes to keep the battles flowing, similar to Battlefield 5 and Battlefield 1. The immersion gap in Modern Warfare settings. While polished, the modern setting doesn't pull me in like the historical settings like Battlefield 1 and 5. Those games made battles feel like you were part of history. Here, despite the visual fidelity, it feels a bit more clinical and less emotionally engaging. Destruction stagnation. There are more particle effects now, but destruction mechanics haven't evolved much since Battlefield 3 and 4. Buildings still collapse in predictable ways, debris is scripted, and explosions don't always feel chaotic and unique. Again, I did notice difference between Beta 1 and 2. Sometimes entire buildings were wiped out, so I'm a bit iffy on this one. I imagine I'm probably just missing something or didn't see it all, so that one's on me if it comes to light. Combat dynamics against multiple enemies. If you come across 2 or more opponents at once, your survival chances are almost 0. While this adds realism, it can also make combat feel unforgiving when outnumbered. Match length. I prefer a long, gritty match, 40 to 60 minutes, that allows time for strategy and turning the tide of a battle. In the beta, breakthrough matches lasted only 15 to 20 minutes, which feels rushed and less tactical. Splash damage nerf. The RPG feels underpowered. So many times did I fire around at an enemy's feet or into a crowded room, and there was no damage, only a suppression of 5 points. Explosions need to feel dangerous again. Give me that splash damage. Vehicle spawn system. The vehicles do spawn on the map, but not as naturally as, say, the earlier Battlefield titles. Now in most cases, you have to call them in. This slows the access, reduces the thrill of grabbing a fresh tank or a jet, and breaks the immersion. Now for my biggest frustration. One thing that really frustrated me in this beta is what happens when you finish a match. Instead of automatically moving into the next game, you're forced to press X to continue. If you don't, you just sit there stuck in the end screen, and in most cases, I even had to quit out and entirely rejoin a fresh game. That's infuriating. A Battlefield match should flow naturally from one to the next, not kick you back to a dead end unless you manually press a button. It completely kills the momentum and immersion of playing multiple matches in a row. Another thing I noticed is how fast the game feels. Not just in terms of match time, but the actual gameplay itself. The movement is zippy, the controls feel almost too crisp, and there's this snappy, twitch-like responsiveness that honestly caught me off guard. Now, don't get me wrong, on paper that sounds great. The smoothness is impressive, and once I got used to it, I actually enjoyed how responsive everything felt. But at the same time, it almost felt like Battlefield was drifting a little too close to Call of Duty's style. COD has always been about that razor-sharp, ultra-fast gunplay, whereas Battlefield traditionally leaned heavier, more tactical, with a bit of weight to how soldiers move and fought. This beta though, felt like EA and DICE might be conceding to COD just a little, maybe even trying to pander to that audience. And that's a double-edged sword. On one hand, the crispiness makes firefights satisfying and keeps the action flowing. On the other, it chips away at Battlefield's identity. That sense of grounded realism and large-scale squad-focused combat that set it apart from the biggest rivals. So while I did adapt, and I do appreciate how smooth it all feels, I'd like to see them find a better balance in the final release. Battlefield should be Battlefield, not Battlefield wearing a COD mask. Right, let's finish with some things that I really loved. It felt like Battlefield. From the first match, it had the signature Battlefield energy. Chaotic, massive and unpredictable. Tanks rolling through the streets, jets streaking overhead, infantry firefights everywhere. It felt alive. Impressively, it felt like a proper complete game. Unlike many modern shooters that ship half finished, 2042, this beta already feels polished and complete. It has that feeling of a proper finished game, not something that relies on a post-launch fix. Upgrading guns felt meaningful. Weapon upgrades actually improved performance. Tighter recoil control, faster ADS, and better stability made a noticeable difference in how I played, and matches felt more rewarding because of it. This game had some of the best gunplay I've ever experienced. The shooting mechanics are phenomenal. Weapons felt responsive, with a perfect balance of accuracy and recoil. Whether you were playing with assault rifles, snipers, or close-range weapons, combat feels satisfying every time. And what about the bugs, you might ask? Yes, there were some beta quirks, like being stuck on the end of match screen, but nothing that broke the experience too bad. I know it's a beta, I'm just saying that's what happened to me, and I was pissed at the time. But these issues are minor. So was it perfect? No, but for a beta, it's extremely promising. If they can address the squad play, ammo distribution, and fix the end of match flow, this could easily be one of the best Battlefield titles in years. Would I buy it? Yes. Did I get tired after a while? Yeah, eventually. Is it still a good game? More than good. Was it fun? Hell yes. If recent Battlefield releases have left you disappointed, this game might just restore your faith. EA hasn't nailed everything, but it's the closest we've been to that Battlefield magic in years. For me, that's more than enough reason to be on the front lines when it officially drops in October. Thanks for listening. See you next time.